Hi guys, Al DeMarco here, and this is going to be your Saturday video report, and I'll get to your college football previews and free pick in just a moment. But I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that I have mixed emotions about even doing this report today on the 9-year anniversary of 9/11. It just doesn't seem right, I've got to be honest with you. However, as general manager of the site, it's still my responsibility. And yet, 9/11 was the defining moment for this generation. Much like when I was a kid growing up, I used to always hear the story of when the day John F. Kennedy was shot back in November of 1963. My father happened to be working at the University of Penn's athletic fields on a construction project on that day with somebody else, and the highway, the Schuylkill Expressway that snakes through that area to Center City, Philadelphia, they looked out and cars were stopped. Everyone was stopped on the highway. They didn't know what was going on. And then they subsequently found out the president had been assassinated, and that's why people were hearing the news on the radio, overcome with grief, came to a dead stop, and it happened all across the country. Well, 9/11 is the same way. That day I happened to be flying to Atlanta. Steve, my partner, who I didn't know at that time, he happened to be flying back to New York. His plane was rerouted, and it was one of those situations, like so many others, where he had to find alternate methods to get back to his family's place there. And it's a moment that's, always going to be seared in everybody's memory. You think back of all the senseless lives that were taken. And it was also a strange time in the sports gambling business because all the games came to a halt. There was no gambling. There was no action. It took a few days to see everything going to get back in place again. So it's a very strange time, and as I said, very mixed emotions about doing this report today. And to go with the trite cliche that the show must go on, I'm sorry guys, just don't buy it. Well, with that being said though, unfortunately we will go on here because I've got to give you these plays. Last night, of course, in college football, gave you Houston as a free play here on the video, and it was a winner as they took the UTEP Miners to the woodshed and easily covered the 22-point spread. West Virginia, the other favorite playing last night, however, did not get the job done, needing overtime to rally for the win at Marshall, overcoming a double-digit deficit. So in the games Thursday and Friday combined, those 4 games, the favorites have gone 2-2 after going 18-19 against the spread with 3 pushes put along the way in week number 1 action. And also keep in mind that in week number 1, the double-digit favorites went 11-12 versus the spread, which is very unusual because usually the double-digit chalks have a field day in the first couple of weeks of the season when the lines are not that sharp. And of course, you also saw last night another situation where the double-digit favorites took a split with West Virginia failing and the Houston Cougars getting the job done. Today, first game I want to talk to you about is the Oklahoma State contest going on the Saturday night card. Oklahoma State is a 13.5-point favorite. I thought about using them last week and I missed the boat, I have to admit, because they absolutely drilled Washington State a week ago, 65-17. They have installed the spread offense, which, kind of a version of the Texas Tech attack that everybody is running right now, and it worked to perfection last week. Kendall Hunter, who had an injury-plagued season a year ago, came back strong here in his debut this season with 257 yards and 4 touchdowns. And their quarterback, Zach Robinson, of course, was drafted in the NFL this year. Their new quarterback is a guy by the name of Brandon Weeden, a 26-year-old who took over the reins. He spent the previous few years as a pitcher in the, I think, New York Yankees minor league system. Strong start for him, 22 of 30, 218 yards, and 3 touchdown passes. And what I really liked about Oklahoma State in this game, a lot of teams had big wins against little sister of the poor opponents. It's easy to beat up the Hamptons of this world that way, and the Arkansas States, for example. But Washington State, not a powerhouse program, a downtrodden program, but still a big-name program, and they took them to the woodshed, 65-17. They are 19. The Cowboys are 19-6-2 against the spread as a favorite under the coach Mike Gandy. 12-5 their last 17 as a favorite in Stillwater. They will not take Troy State lightly in this game for a couple of reasons. Back in 2007, Troy State lost or beat Oklahoma State at home 41-23 in a huge upset. The following year, Cowboys got revenge, 55-24 in Stillwater again. They do not forget Troy State. Troy State last week really struggled. 30-27 victory over Bowling Green, needing a 34-yard field goal with just 3 seconds left in that game. They're breaking in a new quarterback, Robinson. He struggled somewhat with a couple of interceptions. So I say go ahead and lay the 13.5 points with Oklahoma State. But I also want to have you consider this. I think you could take Oklahoma State and team them with Oklahoma. Virtually pick them or -1 point in Norman today against Florida State. I think it's a great teaser possibility. Oklahoma State -7.5 at home, combined with Oklahoma -1 at home against Florida State. I don't think Oklahoma is going to lose, despite how poorly they played last week at home to this Florida State team that is offensively very exciting, but has some huge holes and question marks defensively. So 2 ways to play Oklahoma City, straight up and in a teaser with Oklahoma. And by the way, I mentioned the teaser the other night regarding the Saints and Vikings. You saw in that particular contest, I said really it was a great game to middle. And you saw the middle came out in terms of the teaser. You could really do the same thing, I think, with the Oklahoma contest today. Middle that game, playing Oklahoma on one side, Florida State on the other. Not as fan of that particular middle of a teaser. I think another game that you could middle today in terms of a teaser would be Ohio State and Miami of Florida. The line is 8.5 points. You could take Ohio State down to 2.5, or you could take Miami of Florida all the way up to 14.5 points. I think that's an exceptionally strong teaser possibility today in terms of a middle in that game. Now, here is another teaser for you. Early action today. Georgia Tech and East Carolina would be the teaser. Now, Georgia Tech is currently laying 14 points at Kansas. Georgia Tech opened up a 41-10 win over South Carolina State last week. Georgia Tech 9-2 against the spread. The Rambling Wrecks last 11 on the road. Paul Johnson in his coaching career, 28-11 ATS on the road, and they have covered 5 of their last 6 road openers. Do not be concerned. They have North Carolina coming up next for their ACC lid lifter, because they are 5-1 against the spread the last 6 years prior to playing the Tar Heels. As for Kansas, what can you say? They lost outright at home to North Dakota State. That is a little sister of the poor. 6-3 last week in Turner Gill's coaching debut, and afterwards he was worried about his defense if it was speedy and athletic enough. Georgia Tech, very hard to stop this team with its option attack, and I don't care whether you have a fast defense or not. When you're playing a non-league foe like Georgia Tech, it's one of those situations your defense is going to be hard-pressed to come up with stops. So I think taking Georgia Tech down to an 8-point road favorite is a nice teaser possibility, and I would hook the Yellow Jackets up with East Carolina, also laying 13.5 points at home against Memphis. Now, East Carolina, of course, screwed me in a teaser last Sunday when Dominic Dawes, the former Boston College quarterback, playing in the new air raid attack that Ruffin McNeil, the former Texas Tech assistant, brought with him and installed in East Carolina in his first game. Dominic Davis, a huge, monstrous game, including a game-winning 33-yard Hail Mary touchdown pass as East Carolina, with time expiring, nipped Tulsa 51-49 in this contest. So East Carolina really owes me after they screwed me last week in that teaser. So you would take East Carolina down to, what are they laying? 13.5 right now. You'd knock 7 points off of there. You take them down to 6.5 points in this particular situation. Combine them with Georgia Tech at -8. Keep in mind that East Carolina has covered 8 straight in the series against Memphis. Double-digit wins in the last 4 meetings. Memphis just 2-11 against the spread their last 13 games, and the Tigers got beaten up last week at Mississippi State in their opener, losing 49-7. They only had 237 total yards. They allowed the Bulldogs to gain 569 yards in that contest, and yet you saw how offensively inept the Bulldogs were in that loss at home to Auburn just on Thursday night. So again, that would be your teaser possibility, your teaser free pick there, going with Georgia Tech and East Carolina. Good luck, everybody, and I'll catch you again on Sunday.